I could hear the moms next to me with their crying babies that they were able to hold. And I was all alone. Hey there, welcome back to Limabean Living. If you are new here, my name is Emily. This is a part 2 in a little series of why I am terrified to have more children, even though I want more children. So in the last video, I talked about Aubrey's birth story and really how it made me feel like less of a woman. So if you guys didn't go and watch that video, make sure you check that out. I will link it above and in the description box below so that you guys can go ahead and find that video after this one. But in this video, I'm actually going to be sharing kind of the traumatic situation, in my opinion, of what happened with Aubrey after she was born. So as you guys may have seen in the last video, I did have to have a C-section. I mentioned that the doctors brought her over to me, kind of like held her right here, and they were like, hey, kiss your baby, we're gonna take a picture. So I gave her a little kiss and she was whisked away to the NICU. And she was there for like a week and like 2 days. Do I really know why she was there other than she was jaundiced a couple times and they had to give her like the UV light and all that stuff? Not really. This whole kind of area was a blur. I don't know exactly what was wrong. She might have had some fluid in her lungs because when they do a C-section, because the baby doesn't go through the vaginal canal and like really get squished on its way out, the fluid that's kind of in their lungs doesn't get pushed out. So I know that she had some fluid in her lungs that they had to deal with, but other than that, like, I don't really know why she was there. I didn't get to go see her for maybe a couple of hours because they whisked me away to a separate room, kind of like in this big room, but like with curtains separating each of the parents or each of the moms who just had babies. And because I had had the epidural in preparation of a vaginal birth, I had to lay there until I was able to like really be able to kind of move around a little bit more. But the funny thing was, I was like, okay, how long am I going to be in this room? You know, eventually I was going to go and get my own room. And then the hope was that Aubrey would be in there and, you know, we'd be able to go home in a day or two. And the nurse said, well, when you can lift up both of your legs and then lift like your pelvis off the bed, that kind of shows us that, you know, your body's metabolized the drugs and whatnot and you're kind of good to go. And I was like, I think I can do that now. And this was like 10 minutes after I had gotten in there. She thought it would take 4 hours. And I was like, leg, pelvis, like good to go. And my body was like, metabolize these drugs fast so I can get out of this room. Because it killed me to be in that room because Aubrey was whisked away to the NICU and Juan followed her. I was in this room by myself and I could hear the moms next to me with their crying babies that they were able to hold. And I was all alone. And because we're stationed in a state that is different from where our families live, I didn't have anyone there. My mom, as soon as she found out that I had had a C-section, she booked a plane and she flew out. For those of you who are judging my mom for not being there for the birth, she had already bought a ticket for when I was like gonna be due before we knew that I was gonna be induced. And you know, she stayed out here for a few weeks. So she was planning on visiting. But when she found out, oh my gosh, she had a C-section, it wasn't just like, okay, you can maybe get through the next couple of days and then I'll show up. You know, she got on a plane and was there with me. But while I was in the hospital, you know, she hadn't arrived yet. So I was all alone. I was all alone in that room full of mothers and their babies. And I didn't have my baby. And when I was finally whisked out of that room, they kind of wheeled my bed or whatever I was in next to Aubrey's little NICU bed. And I got to see her. And I met some of the nurses in there and the doctors, and it was all just a blur. I don't think I remembered who I saw that night, but I ended up knowing a lot of the nurses very well when I visited Aubrey a lot in the week that followed. But I ended up going to my own room. Juan stayed the night in that room. I wanted to nurse Aubrey. I'm like, this is what people do. They nurse their babies. Like, when can I get started nursing her? You know? And they were like, oh, we'll just rest the night. Like, we're taking care of her in the NICU. And they were like, you can try to start pumping tomorrow. So, I mean, that may have been a semi-good night's sleep for me, I guess. I don't know. But the next day, you know, like, they brought me the pump that the hospital provides while you're there, and I tried to start pumping and no milk was coming out. Not, like, literally not even a drop. And I would pump for anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes and nothing. And again, I felt like my body was failing me. And when I finally felt like I could kind of move again, we tried to get me to walk like across the floor of the hospital so that I could go to the NICU and see Aubrey. And so I actually walked all the way over there. Like, this was, you know, maybe 12, 15 hours after having surgery. Like, I was able to walk over there and be with her. And in retrospect, I probably pushed my body a little too hard in that week that followed. And I'll explain kind of that in the next video. But Aubrey looked out of place in the NICU. Whenever I thought of babies that had to be in the NICU, I would think of babies who were born prematurely, who were super, super tiny. And here I have this ginormous baby laying in, you know, her little hospital bed. But every like 3 hours, I would try pumping for 15 to 30 minutes and nothing. And they were like, even if you get out the slightest bit, you know, bring it over to the NICU, we'll give it to her, you know, we'll feed her. But I was really discouraged because I knew that they were also feeding her formula. And I had this, again, a goal, this mindset of like, I'm going to breastfeed my baby and that's going to be the only thing that she's going to be eating and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, they're giving her formula while I'm trying to pump and nothing's coming out. And I finally got literally one drop, and I took a picture of it. I asked the nurse that was tending to me, I was like, can we bring this over to the NICU? And they were like, that's not a lot. Like, we can't bring that over there. And then when I told the NICU nurses, like, my little story, and I told them, like, it was literally a drop. Like, I didn't produce, like, it wasn't like a small little line at the bottom of the bottle. No, it was a drop of milk. And they were like, you should have brought that over. We would have taken it on a Q-tip and rubbed it on her gums. And I was like, I just broke down again. I felt like I had failed my baby again. Like I didn't bring her the one little drop of milk that I was able to produce. I eventually was able to produce more. And I recognize that that's like how the body works. You're not like a milk supplier at the beginning. But I think it is easier when you have your baby nursing because it helps your body like, oh, okay, this, you know, a little baby is here nursing. It's not the same, in my opinion, than just using a pump. But anyways, I was able to try to nurse her in the NICU, and what they would do would they'd set up like a little wall around little Aubrey's area so that I'd have some privacy. We'd have like a nice chair, and they'd have like nursing consultants come in and help you. And it was a struggle. Aubrey was not really good at nursing. I had to get a nipple shield, and that really didn't help that much. Like, I would have hoped that it would have helped. So it was a big struggle for me to try to nurse her. That was difficult, like even when we got home and she didn't have tons of tubes and stuff connected to her, but in the NICU, she had like, at one point she had a cast on her arm, holding her arm like stiff so that the IV would stay in because they had such a hard time finding like veins for her. So she had to be pricked and poked like a whole bunch of times. And then they had to do it again on her foot. And that was really hard for Juan to watch. I didn't watch them try to find like a vein or whatever, but like he really struggled watching Aubrey get, you know, poked a bunch of times. but she had, you know, a feeding tube at one point. She had things stuck to her face. When they eventually removed it, it was like really red, and like it was really hard to see her in the NICU. And like I said, she was there for a little over a week, and we were blessed in the sense that we didn't have to live that experience for months. And I know that there are some mamas out there that have their baby in there for months. And I remember seeing like another mom come out after we would deliver like our milk that we would be pumping when we weren't able to be in there and nurse. And she just looked so broken. And I was like, are you okay? And she was like, it's just so hard. And I had a taste of that. Just a taste. And so the mamas out there that have NICU babies, I praise you for the strength that you have. It was really hard for me, and I didn't even have to deal with it that long. I just would stand over her bed sometimes and just like cry. It was like, I didn't want this. I didn't expect this. It was like why is this happening to me? But as I stated at the beginning of this video, I really don't know why, like the main reason why Aubrey had to stay in the NICU. She was jaundiced a few times, and so they had this like UV light that they put on top of her crib, and she'd like wear like sunglasses, and like she just looked like a little cool little baby in there. And she'd get her treatment so that she wouldn't be, you know, so that her bilirubin levels wouldn't be like that high. But part of me was like, I know I can just get her to be like in the sun for different parts of the day. Why does she need to be in the NICU? Like there was a lot of me was like, what's keeping her here? Like fix it, let's go home. But Aubrey was born on a Thursday, and not the immediate Saturday that followed, but the next Saturday she was able to be released. She came home. I'm not sure if this is how it is at all hospitals, but if your baby's in the NICU at the hospital we were at, they had to put the baby in your car seat and have like a 2-hour test to make sure that the baby didn't stop breathing, because sometimes the positioning can be bad for the babies and then they stop breathing. That's why like they recommend you don't let your baby nap in the car seat. But Aubrey passed that test with flying colors, and you know, she was able to be released from the hospital. I'm gonna kind of dip into my third little and last little video in this series, because during the week that Aubrey was in the NICU, I had to be readmitted to the hospital. So I had gotten out, I want to say the immediate Saturday following my C-section, but I was readmitted, I want to say on like Tuesday or Wednesday of the following week, because I had an enormous amount of fluid in my body, especially in my legs. And I have a picture showing like a 3-week difference from like a few days after Aubrey's birth to like 3 weeks after her birth. So I had to be readmitted to the hospital because I had so much fluid in my legs. The nurses in the NICU, they were like, oh, there's some fluid, it's fine, you know. And then my mom was like, you should feel her legs. And they touched my legs and they were like rock hard. And they were like, you need to go to the emergency room right now. Like if you can't get an appointment with your doctor, you need to go to the emergency room. And I went, I got checked in, and I'll get into the details of that hospital visit for myself in our part 3. But while I was in the hospital for a few days following, you know, this whole ordeal, I was on, I want to say like the 3rd floor of the hospital, and Aubrey was in the 4th floor, I think. That's considered the clean floor for the babies, the safe floor for the babies. And all the other floors are considered like the dirty floors because it's a bunch of other like sick people. They wouldn't really let me go up to see her. I eventually was, but I was very blessed because they brought her to see me. And they brought her in this like big incubator. She had like a security guard escort her with her like down the elevator with like the nurse that was gonna come and bring her to me. They wheeled her in, like we got special treatment in some ways because I got to still try to nurse her and like be with her during that time. So that was definitely a blessing. And one thing I kind of forgot to mention, so like my mom had flown out for like a couple days after I had given birth because of the whole like C-section thing. And, you know, we actually stayed in a hotel nearby because our home was kind of far from the hospital, and the bumpy roads like really were hard on, you know, my incision and just like my healing. So we literally stayed in a hotel right next to the hospital, and it was like a very quick little drive to go see Aubrey. My mom was there to help me through all of the emotional and like physical turmoil that I had to go through. She got to see Aubrey in the NICU, and so I was really thankful that she was there, because it would have been really hard to keep driving back and forth in the bumpy roads, and with everything that was going wrong with my own body, as I'll get to. It was a blessing to be so close to the hospital in the short amount of time before I had to be readmitted, at least, to go and, you know, take care of Aubrey and bring my breast milk that I had, you know, pumped and worked so hard to get. You know, I just want to say props to all you NICU mamas and dads that struggle every day to go see your baby and to show them that you love them and to bring them milk and whatnot. You know, I was blessed to be able to get some milk out, and in the long run, I was able to nurse Aubrey, but that was still a struggle. We did supplement at the beginning with formula, especially since the nurses were doing that for her. It wasn't what I wanted, but it worked, and she's a healthy little girl today. And, you know, I can't redo any of this. It's what happened. But I am thankful also to all the NICU nurses out there, and especially the ones that worked with my little baby and keeping her safe and healthy. I gotta say though, it did feel weird that week that she was in the NICU and before I was readmitted. Like, Juan and I went out to dinner with my brother, who was able to visit and see her. We went out to dinner, and it was like, I had a baby, but the baby's not here. And it just felt weird. It felt like something was missing, and it was, you know, I had a baby and I'm not taking care of her. She's not right here. And I probably was in the NICU most of the day. You know, whenever I was allowed to be in there I was pretty much there. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, I should take this time to rest. I gotta eat. You know, I'm not gonna be like munching on tons of food like in the NICU. Like, that's probably, I don't even think that was allowed or recommended at all. So anyways, it was a very odd and painful experience. But that kind of wraps up Aubrey's NICU story. Like I said, she was able to come home about a little over a week after she was born, and I was very happy that that was the case. But if you guys are curious to see and hear what was wrong with me in the weeks that followed, make sure you guys check out our next video in this little series where I share my physical journey in healing post-birth. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, and we'll catch you in the next one. Woohoo! You've made it to the end of the video. If you didn't know already, my name is Emily from Limabean Living. Welcome. We are so happy to have you. We post videos every Monday and Friday on a variety of content: lifestyle, cooking, cleaning, military life, DIYs, encouraging mathematical development in children, and so much more. Thank you so much again for watching, and until next time.